In this comparative study, I will be discussing the romantic relationships of my two chosen films and how they are shaped by their production context. Jean Negulesco's 1953 How to Marry a Millionaire was released in the height of post-war Hollywood glamour and affluence, whilst Ken Kwaps's 2009 He's Just Not That Into You was released in the time of developing technologies and a new millennium. I chose these films because although they are from different times, they both focus on their respective eras' cultural expectations surrounding romantic relationships taken from the female's perspective. In How to Marry a Millionaire, the three female leads are driven by the ideal of having a rich husband to financially support them, while in He's Just Not That Into You, the female characters all want the fairy tale ending with the perfect man.
I love you.
Despite being more than 50 years apart, the story of romance in these films are surprisingly similar, with all the leads in both the films being white, slim women looking for heterosexual relationships. One of the core themes in each film is female friendship, with the notion of females sticking together clearly depicted in both. However, if you compare how the women talk to each other in each film, there are some key representational differences. When looking at the female friendships in How to Marry a Millionaire, there is a scene where the three female leads, Schatz, Pola and Loco, are in the powder room talking about the men they are on dates with and only focusing on the wealth of each man and ignoring their rudeness.
Men with that much dough are never a little old.
Mine's loaded too, but he's a real yawn.
What could seem strange in a modern context is that these friends don't tell each other that they deserve a gentleman, but instead, they give advice that if he hasn't got enough money, they should leave. They were each sticking to the societal norms of the times and couldn't even be honest with each other, as they were completely blinded by the expectancy of finding someone rich.
Who is he?
I don't know that either, but he hasn't mentioned anything under $1 million yet.
When comparing this kind of attitude to the women in He's Just Not That Into You, the main characters' female friendships are very caring and emotionally supportive. While they encourage each other's romantic endeavours, they also try to be honest when someone doesn't appear to be good for their friend. When looking at the different views and aspirations that these independent women have in each film, they're mainly based around marriage and finding the perfect man. The independence of the lead female characters in both films is dictated by the obsession with having a man in their lives.
Maybe he lost my number, or is out of town, or got hit by a cab.
In How to Marry a Millionaire, this is initially driven by desire for wealth, and in He's Just Not That Into You by a need for self-worth. When focusing on the socio-economic context, according to the US labour force change, the share of women in the labour force grew from 30% in the 1950s to almost 50% in 2000. In How to Marry a Millionaire, the way that Schatz talks around men is very ladylike and as if she's putting on a dumbed-down version of herself. However, when she's just around her friends, she seems powerful and is the mastermind of the film's premise.
Are you out of your mind?
I don't think so. I like lodges.
Well, you can't go. It's a violation of the whole idea, and you know it.
Schatz cancels her wedding to a millionaire because she realises she's in love with another man, which portrays an independent woman and she's making her own decisions. The article Love and Marriage Across Social Classes in American Cinema, written by Stephen Sharrett, identifies that the choice of love over money is the right choice for women in that era. He states that a woman can only expect to be happy if she marries a compatible man, even if he is not wealthy. In contrast, Gigi in He's Just Not That Into You is independent because she lives alone and has a good job. However, she still thinks she needs a man to complete her life. Every guy she meets, she obsesses over being their girlfriend before even thinking about if she's actually interested in them. This shows that she is so preoccupied with finding a boyfriend, she can't see that her life is already great. When she fantasizes about being Alex's girlfriend and then tries to kiss him, his rejection makes her realize that she wants love, but she has to value her own self-worth first.
I'd rather be like that than be like you.
Another character in the film, Janine, is so focused on the fairy tale lifestyle that even when her husband admits to sleeping with another woman, she ignores her emotions and wants to work it out.
I'm really trying here.
Do you want to save our marriage?
It's only when Janine finds a cigarette packet in Ben's shorts after he had promised he wasn't smoking that she realizes she doesn't have to put up with his indiscretions anymore, and her self-worth pushes her to leave him.
Lying sack of shit!
However, while this film may seem it is portraying an independent woman, many reviews criticised its anti-feminist outlook. Peter Travis from the Rolling Stone slated the film for its misogynistic titles, saying of the male characters, "Wouldn't real women dump these jerks in a heartbeat? What year is this?" In both films, the issues surrounding gender equality are highlighted through the imbalance of romantic relationships, with seemingly little progress made across the 50-plus years that separate each production context. There was a general lack of respect for women in both production and social contexts in the 1950s, especially around intelligence and societal expectations of their appearance. A review of the film from the unapologetic feminist mentions that the creepy part of How to Marry a Millionaire is that it isn't really an allegory or parable or any kind of moral tenet about how this behaviour is wrong, and that it really accepts the behaviour at face value. When comparing this to the new millennium, there is still a lack of respect from men, and when women have accused men of doing something inappropriate to them, most of the time it goes unheard or isn't cared about enough as it should be. When focusing on the portrayal of gender roles in the two films in How to Marry a Millionaire, despite the female characters being the lead, the misogynistic behaviour of the male characters is still apparent. This is shown through Paula's statement,
You know what they say about girls who wear glasses.
the way women dress and look is down to male preference. This is shown through the fashion show scene as women in different outfits come out and do a walk for Tom Brookman, who then decides what style should go on sale. The three main female roles in the film are united by a common goal that they all want to marry a millionaire, which is introduced by Schatz.
Look, the first rule of this proposition is that gentlemen callers have got to wear a necktie.
This depicts the gender role of women as incomplete without a rich man to provide for them. Similarly, the women in He's Just Not That Into You are bonded together in their desire to rationalize the behavior of men who are often disrespectful.
Exhibit A, Chad, the drummer who lived in a storage space. He only used me for rides, and yet I continued to stalk him for most of 1998.
The storyline of the married couple Ben and Janine centers around his affair.
I slept with someone.
Initially, Janine blames herself, saying to her friend, "It's all my fault for focusing on their new house," which she has taken on the responsibility for despite also working, which highlights the modern woman's gender expectations of having and doing it all. But when Ben meets a pretty young woman, he is immediately attracted to her. In the scene where Janine surprises Ben at work after she has learned of his affair and Anna is shoved into the office cupboard in her underwear,
Just go to class just for a second. Just for a second.
both women are focusing on the needs of their partner over their own self-respect. This view of women needing to find and keep a man dominated the self-help genre in the early 2000s with other books like Act Like a Lady and Think Like a Man by Steve Harvey. Tanya Gold from The Guardian called these books self-harm books that are here to maim us. Both of these films are pitched as romantic comedies. However, the notion of romance is depicted differently in each film. In How to Marry a Millionaire, women view romance as marriage and their ticket to financial wealth. In this era, it was expected that most women would take the domestic roles of housework and raising children, and in the film, this is portrayed as the ideal life. According to the Insider.com article on their review of divorce over the past 150 years, they state the divorce rate decreased in the 50s as American ideals changed. The idea of the all-American family was created, and this time period saw younger marriages, more kids, and fewer divorces. In the film, Betty says,
What you mean is you're not interested in a man without trees.
which shows her as being money-orientated, and despite being in love with Rory, she initially doesn't follow her heart because of his poor financial status. What redeems the romantic heart of the film is that this all changes in the end when all three women choose the man that they truly love. And He's Just Not That Into You, modern-day romance is portrayed through technology with the premise that if he's not texting or calling you, then it means he mustn't be interested.
You just have to go around checking all these different portals just to get rejected by 7 different technologies.
According to Amanda Lenhart, who works at the Pew Research Center of Internet and Technology, 74% of the adult internet users who report that the internet had an impact on the relationship say the impact was positive. Still, 20% said the impact was mostly negative and 4% said it was both good and bad. Gigi's extreme desire for a boyfriend shows that a romantic relationship is the ultimate goal, in turn conveying that being single is like you're in a waiting room with your true happiness on hold. This is shown in the scene where she sits and waits by her phone for a guy to call. In this close-up on Gigi, all the sounds in the background have been blocked out, showing the intensity between Gigi and her phone ringing. This camera angle causes the audience to really focus on Gigi and what she's waiting for. You feel quite sad for her because this is what her life has got to, just waiting around for a guy to call her. Similar to this, Beth's desire to get married is dictated by the marital status of her sibling rather than her own personal desire. In the beginning of the film, Beth seems content not being married to her longtime boyfriend Neil. However, when her little sister gets engaged, her mindset seems to shift and she says to Neil,
I just need you to stop being nice to me unless you're going to marry me after.
Which leads to their breakup. Despite her attitude towards marriage as unnecessary in the beginning of the film, in the end, Neil proposes to her because he wants to make her happy. This portrays to the audience that regardless of what women say, their happy ending is being married. In many ways, the characters in How to Marry a Millionaire are in fact stronger because they are manipulating the men for their own gain, rather than in He's Just Not That Into You, where the women are being manipulated by men. The good news is that whilst this film is only 11 years old, there have been a lot of advancements in the romantic comedy genre in the past decade. including more ethnic and sexual diversity, as well as the emergence of all-female comedies that don't feel the need to have romance at the core of their story.